I stood alone on that cold Florida shore. My heart split between the boy I used to be and the man I tried to become in his arms. Every stolen touch, every whispered promise under moonlight. Richard's heat still burns on my skin, but his absence cuts deeper. Helen's threat, Sophie's knowing eyes, Adam's questions I can't answer. This secret isn't just ours anymore. It's alive, poisoning everything I thought I knew. He chose his silence over us, but his words still echo. You're in us. Am I? When the world calls me a mistake, when the man I want walks away to save his lies, what's left for me to hold? The waves roar behind me, begging me to bury this hunger in the dark, but my chest aches for the truth we almost tasted. If he calls my name one more time, will I run back into the storm, or finally learn to stand alone? I was 21, a tangle of nerves and secrets, when my parents dragged me to a Florida beach resort to fix me. They didn't know why I was crumbling. Failed classes, sleepless nights, dodging their questions about girlfriends. My name's William, and I was terrified of my own truth. I wasn't the son they wanted. I craved connection but feared exposure. My green eyes always searching, my brown hair hiding my face. The resort buzzed with tanned bodies and forced smiles. My parents thought sun and sand could burn away my shadows. They were wrong. My brother Adam, protective but clueless, planned fishing trips and volleyball games, pulling me into his loud world. I needed escape, so I slipped away, wandering the moonlit shore. That's when I saw him, Richard, sitting alone at a beach bar, a whiskey glass in hand. He was 42, graying at the temples, his athletic frame sharp in a fitted shirt. His smile was warm, guarded, like he carried a weight he couldn't share. I didn't know then that I'd be the one to crack it open. I froze when his dark eyes caught mine. Lost? He asked, his voice low, teasing. My throat tightened. Just walking, I mumbled, hands shoved in my pockets. He nodded, like he saw something I hadn't said. He said, pointing to the stool beside him. You're making me nervous standing there. I laughed, shaky, and sat. Our knees brushed, and heat shot up my neck. He didn't move away. He pushed his drink toward me. Try it, but it's smoother than anything you've had. I was 19, too young for bars, but I sipped anyway. The whiskey burned, and I coughed. He laughed, a deep sound that flipped my stomach. We talked college, the resort, the ocean's pull. He was a businessman, here with his wife and daughter, his tone bitter when he mentioned them. I caught it, the crack in his confidence, but I didn't push. Later, in the resort gym, I fumbled with a weight machine. He appeared behind me. You'll hurt yourself, he said, his hands finding my waist to adjust my stance. His touch lingered, warm, too long. I couldn't breathe. There, he whispered, his breath grazing my ear. Better. My skin buzzed as he stepped back, his eyes searching mine. You're not like most kids, he said, almost to himself. He grabbed a towel and left, but his gaze stayed with me. That night, I replayed every moment, his voice, his touch, the way he saw me. I didn't sleep, my mind screaming. I was supposed to be here to clear my head, but Richard was all I could think about. Guilt clawed at me, raised to believe this was wrong, but his hand on mine felt right. Morning came, and Adam dragged me to breakfast. You look rough, he said, ruffling my hair. I faked a smile, my thoughts on Richard. At the restaurant, I saw him across the room with his wife, Helen, elegant but sharp-eyed, and their daughter, Sophie, texting furiously. Richard's eyes found mine, a fleeting glance that stopped my heart, regret or desire. I couldn't tell which scared me more. I skipped Adam's beach plans, claiming a headache, and went back to the shore. The bar was closed, but Richard's presence lingered. I sat on the sand, knees to my chest, torn between fear and a hunger I couldn't name. I was slipping, falling into something dangerous, and I didn't want to stop. The next day, I couldn't shake Richard from my mind. His voice, his touch, the way his eyes held mine. It was like a hook in my chest, pulling me towards something I didn't understand. I tried to act normal, but my hands shook as I ate breakfast with Adam, my parents chatting about resort activities. Across the dining hall, Richard sat with Helen and Sophie, his smile tight, his gaze flickering to me when he thought no one noticed. I looked away, my face burning, but the weight of his stare stayed with me. Adam dragged me to a beach volleyball game, his friends loud and sweaty, spiking the ball with too much enthusiasm. I was terrible, my mind elsewhere, and Adam laughed, clapping my shoulder. Get your head in the game, well. I forced a grin, but all I could think about was Richard. Then I saw him, standing near the bar with a drink, watching the game, watching me. Our eyes locked, and my breath caught. He raised his glass slightly, a private gesture, and I stumbled, missing the ball completely. Adam groaned, but Richard's lips twitched into a smirk. After the game, Adam and his buddies headed for the pool, leaving me behind to rest. I wandered toward the bar, my heart pounding. Richard was still there, alone now, his shirt unbuttoned just enough to show a hint of chest. "Rough game," he said as I approached, his tone teasing. I shrugged, my voice stuck. "Not my thing," I managed, sitting beside him. Our arms brushed, and I froze, the contact electric. He didn't pull away. "You don't say much, do you?" he said, leaning closer. His knee pressed against mine under the bar, deliberate this time. I swallowed, my pulse racing. "Guess I don't have much to say," I lied, my voice barely steady. He chuckled, low and warm. "I don't believe that. You've got a lot going on in there." He tapped his temple, his eyes searching mine. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. He saw me, really saw me, and it terrified me as much as it thrilled me. That evening, the resort hosted a bonfire. Adam insisted I come, dragging me to the beach where flames crackled and music pulsed. I spotted Richard across the fire, standing with Helen, who was laughing with another couple. Sophie sat nearby, her eyes flicking between her phone and the crowd, like she was studying everyone. Richard's gaze found me through the flames, and my stomach flipped. He excused himself from Helen and walked toward the water, glancing back at me. A silent invitation. I waited a moment, then followed, my sneakers sinking into the sand. He stood at the shoreline, the waves lapping at his feet. "Couldn't handle the crowd?" he asked, not turning around. I stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of him. "Not really my scene," I said, my voice shaky. He turned, his eyes dark in the moonlight. "Mine either," he said softly. His hand brushed mine, just for a second, but it was enough to make my knees weak. "Your trouble, William," he said, his voice rough. I laughed, nervous. "Me? You're the one." I trailed off, unsure what I meant. He stepped closer, his breath warm. "Careful," he whispered. "You don't know what you're starting." The next morning, Adam wanted to go fishing, but I begged off again, claiming a stomachache. He rolled his eyes, but left me alone. I found Richard at the resort's coffee shop, reading a newspaper. He looked up as I approached, folding the paper with a smile. "You're up early," he said. I sat across from him, our knees brushing under the table. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted. His eyes softened. "Me neither." We talked for hours, the conversation easy but charged. He told me about his work, the pressure of his life back home, the way he felt trapped sometimes. I told him about college, my parents' expectations, the weight of their disappointment. I didn't say the rest, the part about why I was so afraid, but I think he knew. His hand rested on the table, inches from mine, and I wanted to close the gap, to feel his skin again. I didn't. Not yet. Later, we ended up in the resort's game room, playing pool with a couple of other guests. Richard leaned over the table, his shirt stretching across his shoulders, and I couldn't stop staring. He caught me, his eyes glinting as he lined up his shot. "You turn," he said, handing me the cue. His fingers brushed mine, lingering, and my breath hitched. The other players didn't notice, but Sophie did. She was there, watching from a corner, her expression unreadable. My stomach twisted. Did she see? Did she know? That night, I saw Richard again at the resort's bar. Helen was there too, her eyes sharp as she watched him talk to a group of men. I stayed back, sipping a soda, my heart racing every time he glanced my way. When Helen stepped away to take a call, Richard walked over. "Meet me later," he whispered, his hand grazing my lower back as he passed. The touch was quick, hidden, but it set my skin on fire. I nodded, unable to speak. I lay awake that night, my mind racing. Richard was married, older, everything I wasn't supposed to want. But the way he looked at me, the way his touch lingered, it was more than I'd ever felt. I was falling, and I knew it. Guilt gnawed at me, but the hunger was stronger. I wanted him, and that scared me more than anything. Scared, I admitted, my voice breaking. His eyes softened, but there was something else there. Hunger, raw and unguarded. "Me too," he said, and then his lips were on mine. The kiss was clumsy at first, desperate, like we'd both been holding our breaths too long. His hands cupped my face, firm but gentle, and I leaned into him, my fingers gripping his shirt. It was wrong. Every warning in my head screamed it, but it felt like the only thing that made sense. His mouth moved against mine, slow and deliberate, and I melted, my fear burning away under the heat of him. When he pulled back, his forehead pressed to mine, we were both breathing hard. "This is dangerous," he said, his voice low, rough. I nodded, my hand still on his chest. "I know," I said, but I didn't move away. Neither did he. His thumb traced my jaw, and I shivered, wanting more, wanting everything. "We can't," he said, but his hand slid to my neck, pulling me closer. "Then why are you still here?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't answer, just kissed me again, deeper this time, and I forgot how to think. We broke apart when a twig snapped nearby, both of us jumping. The beach was empty, but the sound was enough to snap us back. My heart raced, guilt crashing over me like the waves. Richard's face was tight, his eyes searching the darkness. "We need to be careful," he said, his voice low. I nodded, my stomach twisting. "I know," I said again, but it felt like a lie. I wasn't sure I could be careful, not with him. We walked back separately, him first, me trailing behind. My lips still tingled, my skin buzzing where he'd touched me. I wanted to feel ashamed, but all I felt was alive. Back at the resort, I saw Sophie near the bonfire, her eyes on me, sharp and curious. My stomach dropped. Had she seen us? I brushed past her, avoiding her gaze, and headed to my room. I lay awake that night, replaying the kiss, his hands, his voice. Guilt clawed at me, my parents, his wife, the life I was supposed to live, but it wasn't enough to stop the want. I was crossing a line, and I knew it. Richard was married, older, everything I shouldn't want. But he saw me, and I saw him, and that was enough to keep me falling. The next morning, I saw him at breakfast, sitting with Helen, his face unreadable. She was talking, her hand on his arm, but his eyes found mine, just for a second. It was enough to make my heart stutter. Adam was next to me, rambling about fishing, oblivious to the storm inside me. I nodded along, my thoughts on Richard, on the line we'd crossed, on the fear and thrill of what came next. The kiss lingered like a bruise, tender and raw, every moment since that night on the beach pulling me deeper into Richard. I couldn't look at him without feeling it. His lips, his hands, the way he'd whispered my name. But guilt was a shadow, creeping closer with every stolen glance. I avoided Adam's eyes at breakfast, afraid he'd see the truth written on my face. Richard sat across the dining hall with Helen and Sophie, his posture stiff, his smile forced. Helen's hand rested on his wrist, her eyes sharp as she scanned the room. I ducked my head, my heart pounding, and focused on my coffee. That afternoon, Adam dragged me to a resort cooking class, a distraction I didn't want. Richard was there too, roped in by Sophie, who was slicing vegetables with a bored expression. Our eyes met across the counter, and my knife slipped, nearly nicking my finger. "Pay attention, Will," Adam said, nudging me. Richard's lips twitched, but he looked away when Helen walked in, her heels clicking. She stood beside him, her smile tight, and I felt her gaze like a blade on my skin. Did she know? Could she? After the class, Richard lingered, wiping his hands on a towel. "Need a hand?" he asked, stepping close as the others filed out. His voice was low, meant only for me. I nodded, my throat tight, and we stayed behind, pretending to clean up. His fingers brushed mine as he handed me a dish, and my breath caught. "We shouldn't be doing this," I whispered, but I didn't move away. He leaned closer, his voice rough. "Then tell me to stop." I couldn't. His hand grazed my lower back, hidden by the counter, and my skin burned under his touch. Sophie walked back in, her phone in hand, and we sprang apart. Her eyes flicked between us, narrow and sharp. "Dad, Mom's looking for you," she said, her tone flat but her gaze piercing. Richard nodded, his jaw tight. "Coming," he said, brushing past me. I stayed, my hands shaking as I stacked plates, feeling Sophie stare. She didn't say anything, but she didn't need to. She saw something, and it made my stomach twist. That night, I couldn't sleep. I slipped out to the resort's parking lot, needing air, needing to clear my head. Richard was there, leaning against a rental car, a cigarette glowing in his hand. I froze, but he saw me, flicking the cigarette away. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded, stepping closer, the darkness hiding us. He pulled me into the car, the door clicking shut, and we were alone, the air thick with tension. His hand found my thigh, his touch firm, and I leaned into him, my heart racing. "This is crazy," I said, my voice shaking. He nodded, his lips brushing my ear. "I know." We didn't hear the footsteps. The door yanked open, and Helen stood there, her face white with fury. "What the hell is this?" she hissed, her voice ablade. Richard froze, his hand still on my leg. I scrambled back, my heart in my throat. "Helen, it's not," Richard started, but she cut him off. "Don't lie to me," she snapped, her eyes blazing as they locked on me. "You're a child, and you." She turned to Richard, her voice shaking. "You're disgusting." She slammed the door, storming off, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. Richard cursed under his breath, running a hand through his hair. "Stay here," he said, his voice tight, and chased after her. I sat there, my hands trembling, the weight of what just happened crushing me. I'd ruined everything. His marriage, my family, myself. I slipped out of the car, my legs unsteady, and headed back to my room, avoiding the resort's lights. The next morning, the air was thick with tension. Helen was at breakfast, her face a mask of cold control, but her eyes burned when they met mine. Sophie sat beside her, silent, her phone untouched. Richard was nowhere. Adam noticed my silence and nudged me. "What's with you, Will? You're acting weird." I mumbled something about not sleeping, but his frown deepened. "You sure you're okay?" he asked, his voice softer. I nodded, but my chest ached. He didn't know, but he was starting to suspect. By noon, whispers were spreading. I overheard a couple at the pool talking about drama in the resort suites. My stomach dropped. Had Helen told someone? Was it out? I found Richard later, near the beach bar, his face drawn. "She's not talking," he said, his voice low. "But she's furious. She wants to leave." I swallowed, guilt and fear choking me. "What do we do?" I asked. He looked at me, his eyes heavy. "I don't know, William. I don't know." That evening, Adam cornered me in our suite. "What's going on with you?" he demanded, his arms crossed. "You've been sneaking around, acting like a ghost. And that guy, Richard, I saw you two at the bar. What's the deal?" My heart stopped. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. "It's nothing." I lied, my voice weak. He didn't believe me, his eyes narrowing. "Don't bullshit me, Well. I'm your brother." I looked away, my hands shaking. He didn't push, but the suspicion in his eyes was enough. I was trapped, caught between the life I was supposed to live and the one I wanted with Richard. Helen's anger was a ticking bomb, and Sophie's silence felt like a threat. The resort, once a paradise, was now a cage, and I didn't know how to escape. The resort was a pressure cooker, every glance and whisper tightening the screws. Helen's outburst in the parking lot had cracked something open, and I felt exposed. Wrath, like everyone could see the truth on my skin. Richard and I hadn't spoken since, but his absence was louder than words. I saw him at breakfast, sitting with Helen and Sophie, his jaw tight, his eyes avoiding mine. Helen's face was a mask, but her hands gripped her coffee cup like she wanted to crush it. Sophie's gaze flicked to me, sharp and knowing, and my stomach twisted. I pushed my food around, Adam's chatter a dull hum beside me. By noon, the rumors were spreading like wildfire. I overheard a waiter at the pool bar mention some guy and a kid to a coworker, their laughs cutting me open. My face burned as I slipped away, my heart pounding. Did they know it was me? Did Helen talk? I found a quiet corner by the beach, my hands shaking as I tried to breathe. I wanted to find Richard, to know what he was thinking, but fear kept me rooted. What if he blamed me? What if he was done? That afternoon, Adam dragged me to a kayak rental, his voice cheerful, but his eyes searching. "You're acting weird again, Will," he said, tossing me a paddle. "What's eating you?" I shrugged, my throat tight. "Just tired." I lied, climbing into the kayak. He didn't push, but his silence felt heavy, like he was piecing things together. We paddled out, the water calm, but my mind was a storm. Richard's touch, Helen's fury, Sophie's stare, it all swirled, choking me. Back at the resort, I saw Richard near the lobby, alone for once. I hesitated, then approached, my pulse racing. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low. He nodded, his face drawn, and led me to a side hallway, out of sight. "Helen's losing it," he said, his voice rough. "She's talking about telling everyone. My partners, your family." My stomach dropped. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice cracking. He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes dark. "I don't know, William. I don't want to hurt you." "For me?" I snapped, anger flaring. "You think this doesn't hurt already?" Sneaking around, lying, knowing she hates me, his face tightened, and he stepped closer, his hand reaching for mine, but stopping short. "I didn't mean for this," he said, his voice low. "I didn't expect you." My chest ached, torn between wanting to scream and wanting to pull him closer. "Then why did you start it?" I asked, my eyes burning. He didn't answer, just looked at me, his expression raw. I turned away, my throat tight, and walked off before I could say more. That night, the resort's bar was packed, a live band playing too loudly. I sat alone, nursing a soda, when Sophie slid into the seat beside me. "You're in deep, aren't you?" she said, her voice cool but sharp. I froze, my heart pounding. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice weak. She leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. "I saw you with my dad. In the car. On the beach. You're not subtle." My blood ran cold. "Sophie, please." I started, but she cut me off. "I haven't told Mom everything yet, but you're playing with fire." She stood, leaving me breathless, her words a knife in my gut. I found Richard later, near the resort's gym, his face pale. "Sophie knows?" I said, my voice shaking. He cursed, his hands clenching. "She's been watching us," he said. "Helen's suspicious, but Sophie, She's too smart. I felt sick, the walls closing in. What if she tells? I asked. He shook his head, his eyes desperate. She won't. Not yet. But we need to stop. The words hit like a punch. Stop, I echoed, my voice breaking. You think I can just turn this off? He stepped closer, his hand brushing my arm, but I pulled away. You're married, I said, anger and hurt spilling out. You have a life. I'm just what? A mistake. You're not a mistake, he said, his voice fierce. You're the only thing that feels real. I wanted to believe him, but the weight of everything, Helen, Sophie, Adam, the whispers, was too much. I can't do this, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I turned and walked away, my chest tight, tears burning my eyes. The next morning, Helen confronted me. I was grabbing coffee when she appeared, her face cold, her voice low. Stay away from my husband, she said, each word sharp. You're a kid. You don't know what you're destroying. I froze, my hands shaking. I'm sorry, I mumbled, but she laughed, bitter. Sorry doesn't fix this. You think you're special? You're nothing to him. She walked off, leaving me gutted, her words echoing in my head. Adam found me later, his face hard. What's going on, Will? People are talking. That guy's wife, she's pissed, and you're in the middle of it. I couldn't look at him. It's not what you think, I said, my voice weak. He grabbed my shoulder, forcing me to face him. Then tell me what it is, he demanded. I opened my mouth, but the truth wouldn't come. I pulled away, my heart racing, and ran to my room, locking the door. I was losing everything. My family, myself, Richard, and I didn't know how to stop it. The resort was a cage now, every corner holding a threat. Helen's cold stares, Sophie's knowing glances, Adam's growing suspicion. I avoided Richard for 2 days, my chest aching with the effort. His absence was a wound, but his presence was worse, pulling me back into something I couldn't control. I stayed in my room, dodging Adam's questions, my parents' concern, the whispers that followed me like shadows. But I couldn't hide forever. It was late, the resort quiet under a heavy moon, when I saw him again. I'd slipped out to the pier, needing the ocean's noise to drown my thoughts. Richard was there, leaning against the railing, his silhouette sharp against the water. My heart lurched, but I didn't run. I couldn't. You shouldn't be here, I said, my voice low as I approached. He turned, his eyes tired but burning. Neither should you, he said, stepping closer. The air between us crackled, heavy with everything we hadn't said. I stopped a foot away, my hands clenched. This is killing me, I said, my voice breaking. Helen, Sophie, my brother, they all know something. I can't breathe here. He flinched, his jaw tight. You think it's easy for me? He said, his voice rough. Helen's ready to burn my life down. Sophie won't look at me, but I can't stop thinking about you. His words hit hard, tearing through my defenses. I wanted to hate him, to blame him, but all I felt was need. Why me? I asked, my eyes burning. You've got a life, a family. Why risk it? He stepped closer, his hand lifting to my face but stopping short. Because you see me, he said, his voice low, raw. Not the guy I'm supposed to be. The real me. I've spent years hiding. William, you're the first thing that feels true. My throat tightened, tears pricking my eyes. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice a whisper. I don't know who I am anymore. He closed the distance, his hand cupping my cheek, his thumb brushing my skin. You're enough, he said, his voice fierce. You're more than enough. I leaned into his touch, my resolve crumbling. His lips found mine, and this kiss was different, slower, deeper, full of everything we hadn't said. My hands gripped his shirt, pulling him closer, desperate to hold on to this moment. His fingers slid to my neck, his touch grounding me. And for a second, the world disappeared. No Helen, no Sophie, no guilt. Just us. We pulled apart, breathless, our foreheads pressed together. I've never done this, I said, my voice shaking. Not with anyone. His eyes softened, but there was pain there too. I know, he said. I've spent my life running from it. Married Helen to prove I could be normal. But I'm not. I never was. His voice cracked, and I saw the weight he carried. Years of lies, of hiding who he was. I wanted to fix it, to take it away, but I was just as broken. I lied to my family, I said, my voice barely audible. Told them I was fine, that I'd figure it out. But I'm not fine. I want you, and it's tearing me apart. He pulled me into his arms, his embrace tight, like he could shield me from the world. I'm sorry, he whispered, his lips against my hair. I never meant to hurt you. I buried my face in his chest, his heartbeat steady against my cheek, and for a moment, I believed we could stay like this. Footsteps broke the spell. We sprang apart, my heart racing as Sophie appeared at the end of the pier, her face pale in the moonlight. Dad, she said, her voice cold. Mom's looking for you. Again, her eyes flicked to me, sharp and accusing, and I felt sick. Richard's face tightened, but he nodded. "Go back, Sophie," he said, his voice steady but strained. She hesitated, then turned, her steps loud against the wood. I watched her go, my stomach churning. "She's going to tell?" I said, my voice shaking. Richard shook his head. "She won't. Not yet." He grabbed my hand, squeezing it hard. "Meet me tomorrow," he said, his voice urgent. "The beach, midnight. We need to figure this out." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. He let go, his fingers lingering on mine, then walked away, leaving me alone with the waves and my fear. I didn't sleep that night, my mind replaying his words, his touch, Sophie's stare. I was in too deep, and there was no way out. Richard was everything I shouldn't want. Married, older, a risk I couldn't afford. But he was also the only thing that made sense, the only one who saw me. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew I'd be there, on the beach, waiting for him. The final day at the resort felt like standing on a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath me. Richard's words from the pier, his confession, his touch, burned in my chest, but so did Sophie's cold stare and Helen's venom. I avoided everyone, skipping breakfast, dodging Adam's calls to join him for one last swim. My parents noticed, their worried glances heavy, but I couldn't face them. I was a stranger in my own skin, torn between the life I was supposed to live and the one I'd tasted with Richard. I wandered to the beach at noon, the sun harsh, the sand stinging my feet. My phone buzzed. Adam again. "Where are you?" his text read. I didn't reply. I couldn't explain the storm inside me, the way Richard's voice echoed, calling me enough. But was I? Could I be? I sat by the water, my knees pulled tight, trying to make sense of it. The resort was packing up, families leaving, but I felt stuck, trapped in the moment Richard's lips met mine. That afternoon, Adam found me. His face was hard, his arms crossed. "You're hiding something, Will," he said, his voice low. "I saw you with that guy last night." "The pier? What's going on?" My heart stopped, my mouth dry. "It's nothing." I lied, but my voice shook. He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Don't lie to me. Helen's been talking, saying her husband's messed up over some kid. Is that you?" I froze, guilt choking me. "Adam, please," I said, my voice breaking. He grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "You're my brother. Whatever this is, you need to stop." He let go, his face soft but firm, and walked away. I sank to the sand, my chest tight, his words cutting deeper than I expected. I didn't see Richard until dusk, standing at the pier where it all began. He was with Helen, their bags packed, Sophie trailing behind. Helen's face was cold, her eyes locked on him, but his gaze found me, raw and pleading. My heart lurched, but I stayed back, hidden by the crowd. Sophie glanced my way, her expression unreadable, and I felt the weight of her silence. Would she tell? Would she destroy us? I waited until midnight, as he'd asked, on the beach where we'd kissed. The waves were louder now, the air heavy with salt and endings. Richard appeared, his silhouette sharp against the moonlight. He stopped a few feet away, his hands in his pockets. "Helen wants to leave tonight," he said, his voice low. "She's giving me an ultimatum." Yeah. He trailed off, his eyes locked on mine. I swallowed, my throat tight. "For what?" I asked, my voice barely audible. He stepped closer, his hand brushing my arm, sending sparks through me. "You," he said, his voice rough. "She knows it's you. She's threatening to tell your family, my partners, everyone." My stomach dropped, fear clawing at me. "What do you want?" I asked, my eyes burning. He looked away, his jaw tight. "I want you," he said, his voice breaking. "But I can't lose everything. My daughter, my life. It's not simple." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "And me? What am I to you?" He grabbed my hands, his grip desperate. "You're everything I never let myself have," he said. "But I don't know how to do this." I pulled away, my chest aching. "Then choose," I said, my voice shaking. "Because I can't keep hiding. My brother's asking questions. Sophie's watching. I'm losing myself here." He reached for me, but I stepped back. "William," he said, his voice raw, "I don't want to hurt you." I laughed, bitter. Too late for that. Footsteps crunched behind us. Helen stood there, her face white with rage. "You're pathetic," she spat, her eyes on Richard. "And you," she turned to me, "you're a mistake he'll regret." She grabbed Richard's arm, pulling him away. "We're leaving. Now." Richard's eyes met mine, one last desperate look, but he didn't sight her. He followed, his shoulders slumped, and I watched him go, my heart breaking. I stood alone on the beach, the waves crashing, my skin still burning where he'd touched me. I had to go back to my family, to Adam's questions, to a life that didn't fit anymore. But Richard's words echoed. "You're enough." Was I? Could I be? The pier stretched out before me, the ocean vast, and unyielding. I could stay, wait for him, hope he'd come back. Or I could leave, bury this, and pretend it never happened. The choice was mine, but the answer wasn't. I stood there, the door to my future open, and I didn't know which way to step.